Welcome back to Gearhead Geeks, where today we are going to be putting this beauty, which is a supercharger gear, and a new supercharger chain, cam timing chain, and we're just going to go look through everything else and make sure it's all good. The reason we're doing this is the supercharger gear will help with altitude. The H2 is just hairy at sea level. It's almost uncontrollable. At altitude, it suffers like every other bike. It isn't as powerful. So I live at a fairly high altitude, and almost everywhere I ride can go up to 10,000 feet almost. Well, 8,000 feet. And it loses power. So I'd like to have something to get my power back a little bit. Like I say, 80% of where I ride is 4,000 feet and above. So anyway, we're going to be changing that supercharger gear. The bike has got 76,000 miles on it, so it would be a good time while we're in there to change the cam timing chain and the supercharger chain. Why not? We're there. I've got them. We'll just do it. It's a pretty extensive job. We've got to get the valve cover off. We've got to pull the cams. There's a few other things we have to do. But, you know, it's just an adventure here. And it's winter, so now's a good time to do it. So we will get to it. Okay, to get started, the first thing we need to do is we need to get all the fairings out of the way. We need to get the gas tank off. We'll just start pulling all that stuff. So we'll just go through it. The seat comes off with a little piece here. Gotta remove that, and we'll get some of the stuff that I have inside the seat out. Then there are two 5mm Allens, 6mm bolts, but using a 5mm head that you remove. And we'll put that there. And another. And once you get these bolts out, which are kind of buried under all my stuff, you can pull the seat back a little bit and out it comes. So here's the seat, here's what's underneath. A little dusty under there, but not bad. We'll just put everything over here. The tank comes out with using the same 5mm. Actually, I should just go get it. Do something we can use with power. So we'll do that. And we'll grab a 5mm. And we'll use the Makita. And no, need to break them loose first. Not a problem. Tight. 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 Alrighty. Try that again. And these are black plated bolts. So we'll put those down here along with the rest of it. Okay, so the rear of the tank can come up. So now we need to start getting the fairings off. So we use the same pieces here. Now on the H2, any bolt that goes into a painted part has a little plastic washer on it. So we'll just take those and just start pulling them out. Okay. And now there's two covers that go along the sides here, and these aren't painted, so they don't have the little plastic washers on them. And they just work their way around. Now there's one way on the inside, and we don't want to, it's easy to let it fall down, so we're going to just use this long snap-on hex driver, and it makes the job so much easier. I think I'm just going to get a magnet. And there should be a magnet around here somewhere. There's one right here. This will make life a little better. Because these things disappear. When they disappear, they are no fun. Let me see if I can get this loose and get my hand in there first before I go down that path. Like I said, they like to fall in. Okay, got that. Now we can pull this out. There's just one little rubber held in piece, our ABS unit. So we'll move this off to the side. So, and now we can get this guy off to the side. And we just want to make sure that we don't mess anything up. Now, we'll move over to the other side and go the same route. And this time we'll start with this. Okay. And the same drill with the longer one. This one we can get our hand in, so it makes it a little easier. These gloves are wanting to wind up on the... Okay, there's that. We can now pull this guy, and he comes off. And just like before, let's get our tank cover off. And one more. Okay, that's all off. Screw this down there, and we'll put these guys with the other. Okay, everything's in nice shape over here. So now the next thing that actually has to come off, well, let's get these other covers off. Here, get another screw, and let's go to the other side and get it off. Okay. And that pops off, and here we go. Okay, so we'll put these over here along with the rest. Okay. So the next thing that has to come off is, and get out of the way, we want to get the steering dampener out. So the way to do that is, it looks like the best way will be just to, there's two Allen bolts here, and that's actually the front tank mount. We'll pop those loose and see if the steering dampener will get out of the way enough. I can't remember, but we'll find out. One. And the other. And it looks like there was a washer in there that just fell down into something, so we got to be careful and find it. Yeah, the steering dampener does get out of the way. That's good enough. But that washer needs to be found. And I see it. We got lucky. And we just so happen to have a magnet right here. And I can grab it. And it's right there. We lucked out instead of it falling into a black hole. Okay, so the steering dampener's out of the way. The tank can come up now, and it needs to be disconnected underneath. There's a little, gets a little gassy under there. There's a couple, well, let's get the fuel pump wire off. And that comes out with there's a little tang here that you have to push, so I've got a tool. And it's over here. And I should be able to push down on that and pull. Well, maybe not. Let's try it. There it goes. You have to pull up on it a little bit. So there, that's that. So that's disconnected. And now we should be able to move the tank up a little bit. And let's see if we get the tank up and out of the way. I remember this isn't the easiest job in the world, but we'll get it. Get the battery strap out of the way. We may even have to move the battery up and out a little bit. I don't think you have to disconnect it, you just have to get it out of the way. And we can do that by just kind of turning it. And now the tank will come up a little bit. Okay, we can set it down like that. Then we have to remove the fuel line, and that there's a clip, if I remember right. Yeah, there's a clip, and we have to be careful with things. We don't want to hurt anything. And there's a clip right here that needs to get out of the way. So we take this, and I think it unclips this way. And let's get the other side. I may have to use a little tool here. Need to be careful. We don't need gas all over everything, and we don't need to break any clips. Comes out of the way. It's a little hard to see. And there it goes. We don't make a mess. Okay, so the tank can now come off, maybe. It's hooked on something here. I don't know. Oh, yes, there's two lines that go to the evaporation system. And the right one has got a bend in it, and the left one is straight. Okay, now we can remove the tank, which has got quite a bit of gas in it. Okay, so the tank goes down here, and we are now underneath. And everything is, we need to remove this valve cover, and it becomes quite the operation to do. Which is a shame, because when you have to adjust the valves, it becomes, if you're not doing it yourself, it can become expensive. But since we are doing it ourselves, it's just a little time consuming, but we'll get it. So the first thing to do is start to get the top of this air box off. On the H2, the air box is aluminum, so it can hold the pressure. So there's quite a bit of stuff holding it on. The supercharger is here, and it feeds air up in here, pressurizes the box, and makes this thing go fast. So the first thing we're going to do here is, remember, cleanliness is one of our main goals here. And to be clean, we don't want to have loose stuff floating around. So we are going to just blow off some of the crud. Make sure we're not letting stuff fall down. And things are just a little dusty, not bad. Not terrible. That's it. Okay, so next, there's a couple of bolts here. I don't know if we need to pull this or not at the moment. I do believe we do. I think we have, this is a high pressure line going into the upper injectors. There's two sets of injectors on an H2. There's an upper set and a lower set on the throttle bodies. At higher speeds and higher RPMs, it uses the upper injectors to get a good mixed supply of fuel in instead of the individual injectors into each cylinder. So let's just start pulling some of this stuff. We'll grab a screwdriver for the hose clamps, and we will get that nice and loose so we're not making any trouble. And we got another hose clamp here for the blow-off valve, and the blow-off valve is controlled by the computer. In this case, it doesn't just use pressure, it looks at the pressure. Oops, and we don't want to have that fall into our black hole. So there's this hose up out of the way, and I believe we can take, and I don't think we need to remove the injectors. I think all we need to do here, we'll pop the injectors loose with the wiring loose. Then we will go on ahead and remove the same type of clip we had on the other one that gave us so much trouble. We'll just do it again. Let me grab the tool. And now our injector clip, hopefully. Again, it's just, they don't just pop right off of here. You got to kind of work them. But once you do, there it goes. And now we can remove the line, I hope, without too much issue. Maybe. Here, I think it's moving. No, it's not. There it goes. Now it's moving. And make sure it doesn't, it could have a little pressure in there, so you just have to make sure you don't let it squirt in your face. And it didn't. All right, so that's loose. We will pop loose this sensor, and that will allow us to remove all the 6mm screws using a 5mm hex. Let me get this popped off. Okay, that popped right off. There's one clip right here that onto a feed. And I think that allows us to do what we need to do. Great. All right, so let's pop those off. And we'll put our 5mm back on. And here we go. And I was wrong. These are 5mm screws, not 6. Using a 5mm with a 5mm head. Interesting. Forgot about that. Okay. Working our way around here. Okay, so those are all loose, and we will grab them one at a time here. Maybe I can, a little hard to get at, but we'll get them. And the gloves don't make the job any easier. It's a little hard to hold on to things, it really is. Okay, and we're getting there. Start grabbing all these guys. Whoops, I missed a couple. We can remedy that. Okay. I believe you got to get this one out of here. You don't want them to fall, again, falling down into black holes or anything like that. So we've got all that cleared up, and I do believe now it's loose. It does seem to be. Everything's loose there. We'll just push this off a little bit. I'm going to gently just take this and just push it in and make sure everything's, whoops, we don't want to damage anything. So we'll get that cleaned up and out of the way. And we'll take this, and let's see if we can get this guy to pop off. Okay, let's see if sure anything's not being hung up on anything. So far, we're in good shape. Little gas is coming. Whoop, I see one more. We got one more bolt in there, and now let's see if we can get this to pull off. There we go. All right, now so here's the top of our air box, and you can see this thing is basically clean. There's a little bit of haze in there, but nothing there's no grit whatsoever. And this is just nothing more than dirty air. It's really, really, really clean. Okay, so let's just put this over here, push it aside, and everything inside looks beautiful. The gasket is in good shape all the way around. Okay, and now take a look in here, and clean as a whistle. Yeah, there's just nothing more than a little bit of oil, which is okay. It does have a tendency, because the supercharger is sucking so much, it wants to suck a little bit of oil up. But look how nice and clean that is. Everything is in beautiful shape. There is zero grit in there. I mean, zero. And this is with the Sprint 95 filter. That Sprint 95 filter has excellent qualities for filtering, but it breathes like there's almost nothing in there. It is just a superior deal. So now what we need to do is get these intake venturis off, and I do believe, and I don't think we need to really remove the venturis themselves, we just need to unbolt this and they will come off the injectors. So let's give that a try first. And again, we're back with our 5mm hex, and it's not 5mm, it's 4. So we'll go back over here, we'll grab a 4, And let's see how that does. If it works, oh, looking good. Okay, so yeah, I don't want to pull the screens off. First of all, there's no need. Number two, everything needs to be Loctited back in. So let's not do anything we don't need to. These guys are Loctited with red Loctite. And believe me, that Loctite is held in very nicely. Okay, so this is, we're going to set this down here along with its two screws, and we'll get all four of them off. And again, these hex drivers with the ball end make it altogether possible to get this job done. Now look how clean and beautiful those throttle bodies are. And I'm going to show you the air filter here in a bit. And it is just a fantastic air filter. Okay, there's two, and we'll just keep right on moving forward. And I think what we'll do is we'll grab some sort of a nice clean little bucket here to put these in so we don't lose anything. Okay, so now we may have to unplug. Okay, we're going to remove the hose off of the. All right, there's a hose going to here, and it really just kind of, that's a vent off into atmosphere. And then there is a hose going to the blow-off valve, if I can get it to go. But, well, let's just get it out of the way. Let's see what we got here. This comes up all the way, and you know this hose has got to be removed. Okay, so I have a tool here somewhere that is just made for doing this kind of stuff, and it's right here. It grabs onto hoses and other things and allows you to remove them without destroying them. Boom, off it comes. Okay, so now I believe we can get this guy out of the way. And again, look how clean that is. It's just gorgeous. We'll take, whoop. Something fall off? Huh, another screw. We do have another bolt here, which I didn't get out of there. And that. So these guys, and we are going to mark these. One. Let's go get a marker, and let's go mark our green. Sounds good. Kawasaki green. Okay, so we're going to mark this number 1. This one's going to be number 2. 3. And 4. Okay. I'm going to take the screws and put them into the basket so they don't get lost. Not that big a deal that they're in the same place, but why not? Okay, so with these guys out of the way, we can now continue on. And again, supercharger feeds out through here. There is absolutely zero dirt, zero crust, zero anything. Just as clean as and nice as it can be. Just a little bit of oil. No dirt, just oil. Okay. Now, they say in the book that the injectors need to come off. And boy, it'd be nice if they didn't have to. I'm not entirely sure they do, but boy, there is a lot of stuff in the way. So now we're going to go ahead and start pulling these injectors. And there are some 6mm bolts holding them in that are way down inside, so there's quite a few of them. And I believe there's like 16 of them. And they would be next to impossible to remove without ball head sockets, ball head, hex head. And one down here that's hard to get at. Well, that's not actually it. And let's just keep on going here. See if we can get them. Okay, and continuing on, the long bolts that were in the cover are hold on the tops of the throttle bodies. We just need to get all the ones that are out of the edges. Okay, so now we'll just start pulling these loose, get them out of there so they, again, don't fall into any black holes. And the way I grab them is I try to hold them onto the ball head and with my finger, instead of trying to get both fingers in there to get them out. They can be a bit tricky, but we'll get it. another one. And I believe there's another one here. Okay. And we will continue on. I think that might be all of them. Yep, it is. Okay, so now we can unplug some connectors here. Here's that connector. And I believe we can pop that one out. And now let's get this one out of here. This one's got a cover on it. And there's that. So that's all loose. It's fairly simple. Now that's out of the way anyway. And I believe that we have... Now let's get this guy out of here. That one. Okay, let's see if we can get this. Let's see what we're hooked up to here. I can get at it right here. If there's that, it pulls it up. That's what we wanted. And there's another one. But I think I can get this out of the way enough now where we can work on things. That's good enough. Nice. Okay. And again, looking down into all of this, it's all just clean and beautiful. And look how they hand machined all the intake ports. You just gotta love it. So what we're going to do is take a little bit of a couple paper towels to absorb that. And we'll take some paper towels and put them in our intakes because we don't want stuff falling in. And we got paper towels. And one more. So now what we got to do is start getting rid of some of the other things. So the first thing we'll do is we'll unplug our stick coils. Not the worst job in the world. Just got to push down and there's a... Now, with that out of the way, we can... Let's see if we need to remove this bracket. I think we do. I think we can take off the cam position sensor, which we'll do here. Okay, and out it comes, hopefully, without too much issue. It's a little on the stuck side. There it comes. And I'll put the screw back in it so we don't lose it. And I will start to remove the valve cover bolts. And each has a rubber washer on it. And they have got shoulders on it, so when you tighten them down, it only presses against as much as it needs to. It's not a... You can over tighten them, but you can't squish the gasket. Let's continue on with the stick coils. There's one. The next thing we really need to do, we need to get the rest of the fairings off. So we will begin by removing the side fairing over here. And this is a fairly simple operation. Got the ones with the plastic washers on them, and a couple black ones up in here. Then there's a 5mm here. You take off, and this particular side has got the coolant tank in it, so we'll be dealing with that. But for right now, we'll get these off. Okay. Then there's a little push pin affair inside the fairing here. You have to push it in. You push in the little pin. So I can't really show you. And then once you get the pin pushed in, you can then remove the whole affair. Okay, we got the pin out. Had to go off camera and cuss at it a little bit. Okay, now we'll continue on. Screw down here. The big one's out. So now what will happen is pull this loose, and there's a hose that hooks onto the radiator. See if I can get it out of there without making a mess. Okay, and here it comes. Good. We're going to break loose the valve cover, and don't be beating on it and screwing up the paint. Just take a soft head hammer and then hit it with something else. Okay, you heard that kind of, how about that? Look, it's all loosened up at the moment. So we'll be ready to remove the cams when we get down to that point. So our next trick is we need to drain the oil. There's a bracket on the bottom here, which we have to remember, and then everything else, and there's a bracket up top. And other than that, they're just plain old 5mm hex head, 6mm bolts. So let's get the brackets off first. Not make a mess. I should have left one of those in there. Let me back this up a little bit. Go on ahead and put one bolt back in just so I have something hanging on here. I think I am. Yep, that went in. We can pull this guy loose. Okay, so now our cover's ready to come off. And it's, as you can see, it's pretty straightforward. It just pops right off. Doesn't want to hang on. You don't have to beat on it or anything. And the gasket stayed there. And as you can see, just as clean and as beautiful as anything. Now, we can look back in here. We can see our supercharger chain. And then here we have our cam timing chain. And we're going to be replacing both of those. We also are going to be, as soon as the oil drains, we'll be removing the clutch, which is a fairly straightforward operation. And that will give us access to the supercharger gear, and that's basically behind here. And we can then go on ahead and we'll remove the cams when we're ready to replace this chain. But we're going to deal with the supercharger first. The coolest part about this whole thing is this clutch. This clutch is an assist and slipper. And what that means is it has it has only 3 fairly light springs. I'm going to pull these out a little bit more evenly. Oops, my hand's caught. Let's see if I can't get that to uncatch. There we go. The glove catches a little bit. So we'll just... And these springs are decidedly light. They're long, so the tension doesn't get relaxed in them very easily. But they're very, very gentle, I guess. They don't have a lot of spring tension. And the reason for that is because they assist. Get these all the way out. There's a mechanism in the pressure plate so that when the engine is driving it, it drives the clutch plates together. And then it's a slipper clutch, so if there's too much pressure moving back, and as you can see, these springs are they're not real heavy, and there's only 3 of them, and the pressure plate is basically got these grooves in it. So what ends up happening is when the engine is going forward, it pulls tight here, and it pulls the clutch together. And then when you back off, it pushes them apart against this surface. And as you can see, there's very little wear in here. And we've got some bearings in here. We've got the clutch pusher. So we'll put that all right here. And we can set this down here. And now there's a big nut here. And we'll take out a clutch plate. And look at these clutch plates. They're like brand spanking new after 70,000 miles. It's just amazing how well engineered this bike is. It truly is. And as you can see, this last plate goes in a little bit differently than the others. The others are put in one way, and there's a little mark on this plate. But it is truly a really remarkable clutch. Okay, and we can lay this like this, and I'm going to move this down a little bit. I think I'll lay these clutch plates down on this. So we'll start from the front and work our way back. Now, it's because of the hub in here, it's a little hard to get out all these plates, but we can do that. We'll just, since we're here, we'll be looking at the wear. And again, these plates are like almost like brand new. Even when a lot of times when you have a clutch that's mixed with engine oil, and when you drain everything, you can kind of smell the clutch material. And funny, in the H2 you don't get that much, and one of the reasons is because of the quick shifter. Now I think, well, what does that have to do with it? Well, what ends up happening is the quick shifter negates having to use the clutch when you shift. And just let me interject. This is the back plate. It's a little bit skinnier also. So the back plate and the front plate are skinny, and the other ones are fat. So anyway, there's quite a few clutch plates on that. And then once we get to this point, this is pretty much a standard old clutch. There's nothing too special about it. We're going to remove this with an impact, and everything is so super tight. It's just like brand new in there. Very, very well engineered. This whole thing is just, it amazes you sometimes how well it's engineered. Okay, so the first thing I need to do here, that I'd like to do, well, we'll just let this drain a little bit. We will get the clutch off. And I think that's a 27 millimeter socket. That's just my guess. Let's see how well we came up with that. And it's a 27 millimeter socket. Beautiful. Okay, and what we will do is close this drawer. We have, this is a genuine Kawasaki clutch holding tool. Believe it or not, brought back in the 70s, and it was made in the USA. Very cool. Okay, so now we'll grab it. The big impact, and we can get this clutch holding tool into position. Let me get it pretty much 180 degrees. And that's pretty close. And it's just holding on to it. It's loose. Hold on to this. Get a 27 on there. And we'll give it a crank. And off it comes. All right. There's the nut. Get this out of the way. Off to the side. And we will put that with everything else. Now this comes off. This is just standard clutch stuff. Okay. And under we have a washer. Now there's a spring in the basket. We'll leave that right there. And let me get this. Let me just leave that just like it is. And I'll just move this off to the side. Good. Okay, now the basket should just come off like a normal clutch. And it does. Nothing special. No special washers in there. There's a roller bearing back in here with a spacer behind it. And we can leave that like that. And then there is a driving, this drives the oil pump. So this guy here can stay on there at the moment. I think we can just leave that just like that. And we're going to be replacing this chain, which is really nice and tight. Probably doesn't really need replacing, but you know, it is what it is. So now we're ready to remove the supercharger gear. Okay, let's try this guy. And this one will probably do the trick. And it, yeah, this is a nice, powerful CP. It's an original USA made one. And let's see if we can get this gear off of here without too much issue. Well, let's see here. Could be that we need to get it kind of past the guides. So what we'll do here is the guide right here, and we just need to push the see, it's kind of caught on the guide at the moment. I need to get the chain away from the guide. We may have to remove the guide to do this. I'm not sure. Never done it before. Looks like we're past the guide. No, we're past the guide, I think. And we got it. So here's the supercharger gear that we removed. And here is the supercharger gear we're putting in. And it's just slightly smaller, just by one tooth. Okay, so we can now, okay, here's the chain, and now we'll get our new chain. And this is our old stuff. And we got a new chain coming. And our chain is sitting, this is it. And again, that chain had nothing wrong with it at all. Probably just fine. But we're here, got a new one in hand, and why not? Okay. Here's on your chain. Wrapped up by Kawasaki. And this is the same guy, right? Yep, because this would no way work on a wouldn't they work on the cam chain, so must be it. So we'll get this chain started around the supercharger drive gear, which is now started. Okay, it's basically in there. Then what we do is take our supercharger gear, put it in there, and we'll hopefully get this guy in there. So let's get the soup. It's just a little fiddly. Let's get this guy in first. Get this guy up and over and get the chain around it. All right, now our chain is basically in place, and it popped right on, and yep, in about the same place. Okay, so new supercharger gear, new supercharger chain. So the next thing we have to do is, and this is pretty critical. They tell you to use a new supercharger, a new bolt in this. So we ordered a new bolt. We have one. But one of the things that we really want to do is make sure that it's clean inside our threads over there. So what we're going to do here is we're going to just use a little brake part cleaner. No, let's just use some electronic cleaner. That'll work well. It'll clean this out. So we're going to clean out these threads. Okay, and we'll let that dry a little bit. Okay, and we have in our part bin here, we should have a new bolt. somewhere in this. And a new bolt. Pull that loose. And it's already got some red Loctite on it, but we'll put a little more in there. It's already got some thread locker on it. But we'll give it another drip anyway. Make sure this comes out properly. Yep. Now this thread locker I'm using, I was watching the torque test channel, and they did a test on thread locker, and this stuff here actually worked better than Loctite. And Loctite is the standard, as we well know. There it comes. And what's nice about this stuff, it's a little more of a gel than standard Loctite, which is nice. Okay, so we're going to get this and just let this sit right here for now, and we will go on ahead and dry this cavity. Okay, so then what we'll be doing is we're just going to put a little drip of Loctite on this. Well, before we do that, let's get the washer. Put this here. Get this washer loose. Get it cleaned up. We will put it on. And we will get a drip of Loctite on it. Just enough so it's a little liquid. Just a drop. Okay. And we will screw this guy in. And now we can run this guy down. And that thread locker that they put on there is really good stuff. So the supercharger bolt, the bolt on the supercharger calls for 18 foot-pounds of torque. So we are going to jam a screwdriver into the chain so it can't turn, and we'll hook the torque wrench up here straight in so there's no real strain on anything, and we will torque it to 18 foot-pounds. $15, $16, $17, and 18. And that was right where we need to be. Now, we are all torqued down. The next thing we have to do is, everything is in place. We're torqued down. We got our bolts in. So now we need to reset the tensioner. And like I said, this is not the most fun thing in the world to do. Let me get this. So what has to happen here is this plunger needs to go down and let the clip rest inside of this little groove. And this clip just sits in there, and it will it will, once it's in place, it will hold on to it just enough so that the pressure from the pressure from the oil pump will push against it and pop the clip loose. So let's see if we can get this thing to even start to move. It is really tough to do. You've got to push it and turn it at the same time. So I've spent the last few minutes not only getting this surface clean, if we can look inside here and see, I'll wave around in there, but not just clean, but perfectly clean, and brand new gasket. And we are going to go on ahead and put in our supercharger chain tensioner. Thing out of the way. Oh, and before I forget, this is what it looks like with the clip holding into the groove. It is just barely holding onto it. You got to kind of squeeze the clip together. And the secret to pushing it down is to twist it back and forth. You can put a lot of pressure on it, but that doesn't do you any good. The twisting motion seems to get it so that the oil gets out of the way and you can actually make the thing so it's not pushing so hard against you. And I'm going to have to clean this up a little bit because just moving it around, I got a little oil on it, and I don't want any oil on it. I want it completely dry. So let me take this gasket here on here again. Okay, and it fits just perfectly. And we are now going to put this back on the way it was. I'll move things out of the way this time. And it fits precisely in there. Now, take the two bolts. And we will get things started and snug down. And these get a little bit of red Loctite. So I will clean these and get some red Loctite on. And just a drop. That's nice. Okay, and I'll get this bolt started. If I can. There it goes. And I will run it down a little bit. And I'll pull the other one out and put some red Loctite on it. I just wanted to get it in place. Okay. And these will get torqued down to, I believe it's 87 inch-pounds. We'll make sure of that. Get this clean. Wipe it off with a clean rag. Little thread locker, just a tiny bit. Get it flowing. There we go. Just enough. That's about what it had on it from the factory.
Okay. Okay, and now we will go set up .89 inch-pounds. So let's go get ourselves an inch-pound torque wrench over here. Well, we just so happen to have one right here. And it's got a nice little tiny 3/8 head on it. And we will set it up to 89 inch-pounds, which 90, 88, 89. 89 inch-pounds. Okay, so now we can take our 5mm, I believe it's over here. Find it. I feel 5mm driver. That's a 5. Put it on there. And .89 inch-pounds. .89 inch-pounds. So, done. Okay, so we'll put our torque wrenches off to the side as we use them. Okay, put this away. So now, our supercharger has been properly torqued. Our tensioner is properly torqued. It will pop into place as soon as it builds oil pressure. So now the next thing to do here is just to put back on our cover. So we'll clean anything up that's in there. Get a little, make sure there's nothing sitting around in there. And get the cover all nice and clean. We want zero dirt, zero anything on this. Make sure our O-ring is in place. Put it so that the lettering is facing up, and everything seems to be lined up, and just kind of push it in. Okay, and we have a couple of bolts right here. And these are also 89 inch-pounds, so we will torque those properly as soon as we get started. We'll run them down. Okay, put it back on our torque wrench. And 89 inch-pounds. Done. And we're good to go. So now, again, everything is in place. Everything is ready to go. Need to So now we can go on ahead and put our clutch back together, which is a fairly simple operation. Put in this bearing. Now this oil pump drive will need to index into the back of the hub, but that's fairly simple. There's two holes right here, and we get it close to being lined up, and we can turn the oil pump back and forth until it drops in, and now it's all in there and it's ready to go. Okay, there's a big washer that goes on here, and we can put our clutch hub back on. It doesn't go on in any particular direction. And now we can get our clutch nut back on. wherever we put it. There it is. Now, what they do from the factory is they bend this down just a little tiny bit so that it grabs. And we are going to just make sure that it's in good shape. So the way to do that is we'll just grab a punch. I'll grab a punch and we'll just give it a bit of a blow here just to make sure that it's pushes up against the threads. This is not a big deal. Let me put it in our vise here and just kind of hold it, and we'll give it a tap. It's not very much. Okay, so now we'll just spin this guy back on, and he is going to get torqued to, I believe, and see that little indentation is holding up against the threads, and it gets torqued to 95 foot-pounds. So we need to set up our torque wrench. To 95 foot-pounds. I don't want inch-pounds. I want inch-pounds, foot-pounds. Let's see, 95. Okay. We're set to 95 foot-pounds, 27 millimeter socket, and we will get our clutch basket holder back on. There it is. And it's quite a few foot-pounds, so it's going to take a little bit of doing to get this, get ourselves in a good position to be able to do this. We'll just kind of run this up against the almost there. How did we do? We went up to there it goes. Yep. 95 foot-pounds. Nice. Good. Well, that's all done. While off camera, I did measure the clutch stack, and it is within spec. So we can start by putting the plates back in. And you just got to get them lined up properly. Here's one. And we'll just, and look at these things. I mean, still have the hatching patterns on them. They are just gorgeous. And just put one in at a time. Now, people talk about after you clean them that you should soak them in oil, and that is just plain old incorrect. You just need to put a little bit of oil on them so they can slip the first time. Then after that, they will pick up oil that they're actually floating in, and they need no more lubrication than that. That ridiculousness about soaking the plates came from a clutch plate manufacturer that was having trouble getting things to work right. And Anybody who's been around for a very long time like I have knows about that company. But the Japanese plates that come with this actual plate fits on the pressure plate. So you put that in, and then this one can go here, and then this one fits in the pressure plate. So it's a little bit different. There it goes. Come on, go on in there. Now what's happened here is it's just pushing up against the hydraulics in the clutch. So we're all put back together. The hydraulic clutch has just bled down a little bit. So now you can see this guy moves back and forth. This is lined up with this. This is lined up there. Actually, yep, that's all lined up the way it should be. Okay, and now we can go on ahead and put these three springs back on and get it started so that we don't have to hold this whole thing together. And all three of those start. And let's get this clutch to push back in a little bit. Get a little tension on it. And that'll stop that mess. And that should be just enough to get it going. Good. So now we can close this up so our blue Loctite. Then we're going to take our 10mm socket and we'll just wind these in evenly. Okay, good. And again, more with the 89 foot-pounds. Inch-pounds, excuse me. And very good. So those are our clutch. It's all back together. We can now see it move in and out when I use a... And we are in good shape. Perfect. So the clutch is back on. The supercharger chain is back on. Everything is clean and nice the way it should be. There's no leftover gasket material. And not one little problem other than having to work a little bit at getting that adjuster put back in. Okay, so now it's time to start to replace the cam timing chain. This should be interesting. First thing we need to do is get this valve cover out of the way. There it goes. And it is finally out enough to where we can maybe get this cover out. And here comes the cover. couple of these things in it. Let's see how that goes. Okay, so here's our camshafts. As we can see, they've got 4 covers on them. There's a couple of bolts here, and then there's a couple of holders here. So what we're going to do first is we are going to line up and get this thing on top dead center 1 and 4 and get these cams lined up the way they need to be, and then we can go on ahead and then work on the chain. So to do that, they say we need to align the marks, and there are some marks on this rotor here, and they need to align with this surface right here. So we're going to turn this so it says 1 and 4, and if we look real close, there's a 1 and a 4, and there's a line marking that right there. And then we look at our cams, and we can see marks here. Let me get a light going. And see, we have AE. I don't know if you can see that. There's an AE and an AI. And that is the way we need to line up our cams again, so that we can, once we get the cams out of there, we can then realign them to those marks. And everybody lines up just the way they're supposed to. And it does look like this cam chain may be a little stretched. But for the most part, everything's in beautiful shape. Look at those lobes, just like brand new. After all those miles, just amazing. Okay, so I will start removing the cams. Hopefully, that shouldn't give us too much trouble. There we go. So here's the first one. Let's get this guy out of the way. Now we got to be careful of dropping things in. Make sure everybody's there. And there are dowels that need to be watched over. So I think this one wants to pull out, and we just don't want to lose anybody. Okay. So all the dowels. The 2 dowels that go with that. There it goes, pops right out. Very gentle. And our dowel pins. Okay. Now, we need to, the cam chain is sitting here loose, and everything else is looking pretty nice, but we need to be able to remove this. So let's go ahead and see if we can do that. It's got a lot of Loctite on it is what it's got. So we'll just work it. Well, I think we need to put our screwdriver back in, and we can just work it out. And here we go. Boy, they didn't want that one coming out. Boy, there's some serious Loctite in that one. And it's only blue. But anyway, so now we can look. And this thing will only fit on one way, so that's good. And now we can get this timing chain. Hopefully we can get this timing chain out of here. I don't know if I can do that without removing this. Let's just go on ahead and remove the we'll get this guy out of the way. And again, everything is so slippery. So we'll get our rear chain guide out of the way. Put that here. And it can sit over here out of the way. Yeah, it would be kind of fun to get out of there if you had to. Alright, so now our front chain. Let's see if we can get the chain to slip past this guy, which it looks like it's doing. And here comes, and this chain is still kind of hanging on guides. But I think we got it. Okay, so there's the gear. The gear only goes on one way. And our chain is out. Very nice. And it's got just a little bit of movement in it, but it's not terrible. So, here's our old chain. And we will put that here. And let's get our new chain. And our new chain is in a bag. Somewhere. Let's see. This is our old one. Here's a brand new chain. Get it out. And just about as much slack as the old one. Oh well. Doesn't really matter. It's brand new. It is what it is. This other chain is probably just fine, but this is what we do. Okay, so I'm going to drop this new chain in here. And I think what I'll do is I'll take a screwdriver and just kind of set it in so that it doesn't come falling out on us. And now I can work on it without it gathering and being too much to issue. So here's our chain, and we can go on ahead and pull it up a little bit. And now we got to get it lined up. First of all, there's okay, and we should be pretty close, right about there. Okay, so that allows it to go in, and let's get it past our guide. Oops, we're not really on the chain. We're not engaged perfectly yet. Now we are. Good. So that's in. Our chain is in. We can now put the front guide. I'm going to move this over to the side, and let's just take a quick look at our guide here. And again, looking almost new. Beautiful. No chunks, no nothing. I can throw that back in. Just like everything else on this bike, everything is just basically like new. And we will put this bolt back in, and we will torque it properly. Once everything is in place. Okay, So there's that. Now, let's wipe off a little bit. And we did not get any oil or anything else on our bolt, so we can reapply our Loctite. And that Loctite just did a wonderful job. I'm going to go, I mean, that stuff just cooked itself in there, which is just fine. So this guy, he can only go on the one way, and he goes just like, and there it is, just like that. Whoop. And you don't get much of a choice in that. So we are going to put some more Loctite on this. And that's blue Loctite, which is just fine. And a nice curved blue Loctite. And we will thread this guy in. And with all that being said, now to find, there it is, this, and I think I will get another screwdriver or something. Well, let me just get something to hold the chain up so it doesn't go rattling down in there. There's that. And now I'll use this screwdriver to wedge into this for the moment. It's just a gentle wedge. It doesn't there we go. Yeah, it's going in nicely. Okay, so that's basically on there. So really where we are is it is now time to put the cams back in. I did find the dowel. So what we want to do first is we're going to line up our timing marks, and I'm going to pull this slack out of the chain a little bit. And I'm going to line the timing mark back up. I can just move it back just a little bit right there. Okay, so we are at 1 and 4, top dead center. And now we need to put our cams back in. Now if we look in here, we can see that everything is clean and nice. Everything looks like it's brand spanking new in there. Just again, this engine is just absolutely wonderful. So now, if we look, there is a mark that says AI, and that is our intake cam, and we know it's the intake cam because there's a camshaft sensor on it. I think it's probably better to do the exhaust cam first because it's a little harder to see. We'll do that first. Okay, so what we need here is get the chain lined up, and we need to take a flashlight, take a look inside, and find, get this out of the way, our mark. And our mark should be AE. And that's right about there. get the, so now, get this chain indexed in. And we're like 2 teeth off. Let's rotate this guy down a little bit and pick up our 2 teeth. 1 and 2. See how that does. And we lay it in there. Let's see how we did. We look again, and we are, we're too far now. I need to roll it back a little bit. Okay, so we are lined up where it says AE, pretty much perfectly. Now, what we have to do, make sure we're all lined up. And now we got to get our other cam in. And we'll get this pretty close to AI. We'll be close to that. Get this cam rotated into position here. And let's see if we can't get it close. Right about there, looks close. And let's take a look. And our AI is right where it needs to be. AI, AE, let's see, I know it's a little hard to see in there, but the cams are lined up where they're supposed to be. Now, we can start putting our cam caps back on. And starting with our main guys. And we have both of our dowels in place, and we will get these guys lined up. And these are the ones that actually hold the camshaft from moving left and right. So it just clicked down into place. Okay, and we look at this. Okay. Everything is beautiful, like brand new. And this is number 4. So we'll put number 4 back in. Okay. And we'll put number 3 back in. And our dowels are in place. And we'll get those started. And we can put number 1 back in. And our dowels are in place. And again, I had tried to fall into a black hole, but it just missed. You out of the way again. And we'll get our last one in. And number 2. And 1 dowel is in here, and 1 dowel is over there, so we're okay. And everything is lining up nicely. Okay, so now what we're going to do, we'll wind all these down a little bit by hand. So now it's time to go on ahead and torque down our camshafts. And there's a specific order to do that, and I have printed out the page that does that. They get torqued down to 106 inch-pounds, and I've got the torque wrench set to 106, and we will start. So we start in this corner over here, and 1, 2, 3, 4. So here we go. Gotta get things snug down. Okay, so there's 106. And let's do it here. Screw that down a little bit. Okay. 106. Maybe. Okay, everybody's torqued and double checked. So the camshafts are now in and torqued. Let's continue torquing everything else. Actually, we need to do we'll go on ahead and do the cam chain tensioner now. So I have to go through the routine of compressing it, and the good part is this was replaced not very long ago, and the gasket is clean, and so now what needs to happen here is it's the twisting action that really gets you going. See, as you can see, I'm pushing on this, and I struggled so much before because I was just trying to use too much pressure. And basically it's the twisting action that takes care of it. So then you just take and push this little clip in and you're done. You know, I worked very hard at the other one, and which was unnecessary. You just have to kind of follow the directions, and when you twist, it's really quite easy. So with that being said, we got another gasket here somewhere, and we will, here it is, we'll go on ahead and we'll get the cam tensioner in. Once that's in, then we can go ahead and finish torquing everything else. And they had really taped up the last one, and this one's probably no exception. Can almost destroy the gasket just trying to get the tape off. Man, they did not want that to get away, but we got it. And you can almost destroy the gasket. Okay, so this only fits on one way, and as we can see, everything is perfect. And this guy only goes on the one way, and he goes in like this, and you just kind of push it in, get it lined up, and we may need to work on the moving things around a little bit, making sure the chains are all set. And let me find the bolts for it. Which are sitting right here. Get them started. There they go. And we're going to use our small ratchet because we like to feel things. Make sure everybody is not requiring any extra tension. Going in gently. I'm just working it back and forth a little bit, and the tensioner is taking up some of the slack. And we can see the cam chain already starting to tighten up. It does look like this chain is maybe, the other chain may have been slightly stretched. Okay, everybody's in place. Doesn't seem to be too overly tight. So I'm going to, first thing is I just want to move this back and forth just a little bit, just to make sure that everything is happy. Yeah, there we go. Just the cams are okay, and this is lined up. And we take one last look at our cam chain timing. Yeah, the cam chain definitely, and if you look, you can see the AI for the intake, and if we look through here, you can see the AE. They all line up perfectly. This is lined up. Cams are perfectly in time. Doesn't hurt to triple check. So now we need to torque down this bolt and this, and we will make sure of what that is. And again, everything is so slippery, and these gloves make it twice as hard to move anything. There we go. Okay. And we'll torque this guy down. Okay. And now we need to torque this one to, I do believe we've set it up, and it gets torqued to 29 foot-pounds. Okay, so we'll go get our torque wrench, set it to 29, and get this guy, go on, and it is set to 95 from our last issue. We can go to 20. 29 foot-pounds. So there it is. And we can now take our 6mm drive. We can grab a hold of it. Gee, so slippery. Okay. Now what we'll do is we're going to get our torque wrench here, get our screwdriver wedged in, so that we don't have doesn't turn, and 29 foot-pounds. Just want to make sure we've gone past the Loctite, which we have. Very good. 29 foot-pounds. So that's properly torqued. This is properly torqued. We are now ready to pretty much put the, we need, no, that's all torqued, that's all torqued, that's the torque. I think we're ready to pretty much put on the valve cover. So I'm going to go clean it up, and I'll be back. So in the book, when it comes to the valve cover gasket, they tell you to put sealer in specific spots all the way around. It has nothing to do with sealing. It has everything to do with holding this gasket in place. This is a royal pain. Here's the old gasket, which I've peeled out, and after a bunch of very meticulous cleaning, I've got everything clean and dry and ready to go back in. And hopefully this is dried enough to where we can put this guy together. And it doesn't need to be completely dry because it will still dry some more, but we want to make sure that we have got this all the way around in its groove so it's sitting where it needs to be, because like I said, this operation can be really a pain. I remember the last time I did it, I was like going, oh wow, this is really tough. Okay, so we'll let this dry a little bit and see if it's holding up. And once it's dry, we will go on ahead and put in all our liquid gasket that goes around these guys and any place else that the factory says to put it, because we will be using it in other spots too. There's a few other spots that it needs to go. Anywhere where the cases line up together, you need to use a little bit of it. They tell you to use some in here. There's a couple of the little spots that they tell you. So we'll get that as soon as that dries, and we'll start getting that in place. I have applied a little bit of the Kawasaki liquid gasket on where the camshaft plugs go in, and now I'm going to go ahead and try and fit the valve cover on there. I have glued down the gasket so it stays pretty good. This operation is really hard to do. We'll see how this goes. I'm being very gentle here and getting it in. And again, being very careful, because the gasket pulls out and it is no fun to try and get in place once it comes out. You do not want to have to go through that. But so far, I'm doing okay. I'm just trying to get some of this stuff out of the way, and I will push down here and there, make adjustments as I go through, and I'm just trying to keep that gasket from doing anything bad. Now it's kind of catching on the chain. It's kind of turned in a little bit, and so I'm going to try and pull it out, and again, it's already starting to come out, and this is not going to be fun. So after a lot of swearing and a lot of cleaning and everything else, I finally got the valve cover back on. I had to glue the gasket all the way around and manipulate it in, and also on top of that I had to unbolt the radiator and move it forward a little bit so that I had some clearance to get the thing in. So finally I got it in. Sorry I didn't record that because it was just kind of nasty. So we're back, and we are going to go on ahead and put in our 6 valve cover bolts, and we'll get them all started and gently wind them down into place. Then once that's in, we'll clean around the edges a little bit because there might be a little excess sealer. Now the sealer that I ended up using was the Kawasaki sealer. I tried a couple other things and none of it worked as good as the Kawasaki. And the Kawasaki sealer is rather liquidy, and it is really kind of it smells a little bit like lacquer thinner, and being so liquidy, it has, as soon as it dries, it has really good adhesion. So that made life a little bit easier for me to go in and get the gasket stuck on there. If you don't stick that gasket on there, you will never get it on. It is next to impossible. And like I said, there was a lot of cussing going on that was not family friendly, let's put it that way. Sometimes that's what's necessary to get things done. Anybody who's ever worked on anything like this knows that there are just times when having to just let it all go, hang out, is what you need to do. And in this case, it was that. It was not fun at all. But we are back on track. And now, what I'm going to do here is we're going to get our torque wrench, and we're going to set it back to 89 foot-pounds, or inch-pounds, excuse me. 90. What did I say? 89, or was that 86? Nope, 89. And there's 89 inch-pounds. Okay, and we will go on ahead and start torquing down this valve cover. See if I can find our, wherever it went. Again, oh, there it is. Okay. So we will, in this particular case, we're going to start in the middle. Now I very carefully cleaned up the cover when I was doing all of this, so that because it's one of the things you really can't get at when you're cleaning your bike unless you pull up the tank, and as you saw when we were taking it apart, it just got so much stuff in it. So we'll just make sure everything is cleaned up nice. Okay, and wind these guys down. And it's a good sign that when you push down the middle ones, the ones on the side become loose. That means that everything is just going into place. You're not putting things in a big bind. So we'll get this corner done, and we'll go to the other corner and get that wound in. And we can feel our way around in all of this, make sure there's nothing caught. I leave these little protective covers on. Keeps things from scratching. Okay, and we'll do the other end over here. I have to walk from side to side, but it is what it is. Now, while I've been doing all this, the exhaust gas recirculation valves have been soaking in Easy Off to get all the carbon off of them. And when you need to get carbon off of something, just go get some plain old oven cleaner. That stuff is just amazing for that. It just dissolves carbon and brings everything like new. Tops of pistons, if you have a carboned up old engine that the rings are all carboned up in, spray some Easy Off in the top of it. It will, excuse me, get this done. It will dissolve all that carbon, and you don't end up having to fight and scrape and harm the surface of it. Very good. So our valve cover is all tightened back on. Most of all the bolts and nuts on this are 89 inch-pounds, so that's good. We can just leave our torque wrench there. And now what we'll do is we'll grab a rag, and we're just going to grab a little bit of cleaner and just clean off any excess. I just want to clean off any excess sealant that had maybe escaped its way around. We don't want ugly sealant all over anything. We just got to be, we can be a little anal about those things. And with the radiator loose, we can actually get at the front of things. Oh, nice and spiffy. And again, we're just a little bit due diligence as far as cleaning is concerned. See how nice our valve cover looks. All cleaned up. And it's good. Now, we can start bolting back stuff back on. So let's go over to the sink and see how our devices look. See, if you look, all the carbon is just rinsing away. Look at that. It just dissolves it. You could scrape on this and still not get near as good a job. Look at that. It's almost amazing. And these guys were just black. I mean, totally black. Completely covered in carbon. And I could put delete plates on it, but there's no reason. It doesn't really draw up any horsepower. It doesn't do anything bad. But look at that. Isn't that amazing? I just love how good a job Easy Off does on some of this. And now what we have are almost perfectly clean parts. So, rinse them off. Look at that. Isn't that just so worthwhile? So if you didn't get anything out of this whole video, at least you got to see how good Easy Off does on these parts. And there's a little staining on that, which is no big deal. But the carbon is basically gone. Just look at it. So remember, Easy Off is your friend. Scrubbed up. Nice. Valves are back to perfect. Just rinse them off under the water. And we are good to go. Nice clean parts. Okay, so now we'll just take a little bit of air, blow some of the crud out. Yeah, you can see, if you look inside here, it's really hard to see, but you can see where the tip goes. So these guys go like that, and that little tip runs against it. And we'll put all four of those in. Okay. Now these two guys, I believe, can only go in one way. So put that like that and make sure that, no, doesn't go that way, it goes this way. And they fit in flat like that. And the other one fits in flat like that. And then what's going to end up happening is this guy here ends up going back down over the top. And this thing has been sitting up there for a while, but we will get everybody put back in there in its positions. Okay, and it's going to be quite the adventure to get all this stuff hooked back up again. There are plugs all over the place that are just completely, as you look here, harnesses, plugs, I mean, they are just, it is a brutal mess. So I think the next thing we need to do is get our stick coils in. And we'll just get just the tiniest little bit, just enough to make sure that they don't stick. And we'll put this guy in. One down. Okay, so now I did a little bit of arranging up here, some of the wires, just getting things back into place. So we're ready to put our fuel, our throttle bodies back in, and that will clean up a few things and allow us to figure out where things go. All right, so with that being said, we'll look at the bottom of our throttle bodies, and they are like perfectly clean. And we'll get the hoses out of the way so that we can drop this right back on where it came off. Okay, and then there's only one electrical connector on the bottom here that we have to be aware of. And I think we shouldn't have too much trouble getting that plugged in, hopefully. And its throttle bodies are in place, and I'm going to get this connector, which is down underneath. As soon as I get it on there, there we go, and it's snapped into place. Okay, so our throttle bodies are almost in place now. Just have to, I'm looking around a little bit to see where things go. We know the cables come out there, and looks like we need to move this way. There we go. All right, so we're going to get a couple of screws in there to get the throttle bodies put down to where they need to be. And I believe these are our guys here. 3, and there's 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so these are 5mm with a 5mm head. And let's see if we can get one of them started here. Okay, get everybody in place here. Something like that. Something like that. And is it winding in? It is. So one of them is in place. And get another one in place. So that things don't move around, because in the end, the other screws that hold it in are in the airbox plate. And these are just getting snugged down just to where, just enough so they're just a little bit tight. And we will continue on putting these guys in. And that's why you want to make sure you don't get too carried away. Tightening them down. 2, 3. Oh, there's another one that goes down in here. Boy, here. That's a tough one to get at. I need to get a better angle. Let me get these other two in here. We'll just get them all started and ready to go. Okay. And there's that one left in there that's just way down in there. I just don't want to drop it. Let's see if I can get my finger in there. Get it started. There it goes. Nope, that's not it. See? That would have been just a disaster had I missed. Okay, we got, no, we did not. Yeah, because as soon as they get down in there, my finger, there it goes. We found it. Okay, the throttle bodies are basically in place. They're not tight, they're just in place, just enough. Okay. Now this is plugged off vacuum line that used to go into the evaporative control. So now what we need to do is get our, let's get all of our lines hooked up here. And this guy, I know, goes straight onto this. And we'll put the clamp on. Maybe. I have to. Okay. And then there's another one. Another line over here somewhere that we need to get on. Let me go find it. Like it used to go there. It looks like it went there, but that's not it. Where did this go? Well, not quite sure. Now what we need to do before we do anything, let's get our stick coils plugged back in, because we know where those go, and we can get that procedure out of the way. So this guy goes on here, it pushes on. That's what we found before. Okay, there's one. Comes number 2. Get it in a nice relaxed position. And we'll put number 3 underneath this hose, wherever this hose ends up going. Let me see if I can't. I may have tangled this mess up, and I don't want to do that. Got to figure out where this hose goes, so we'll get that. Now let's get our other stick coil plugged in, and we'll get the last one plugged in. Now there's 2 connectors here. This is one for the stick coil and one one goes into the sensor. There's that. And there's that. That all works out nicely. Cool. Oh, I think I know what this one. No, I'm not quite sure yet. Oh, this one probably goes into the airbox. That's right. Never mind, we got that. Okay, so now there's another set of wires that are going to come over this way, and these go to our injectors and everything else. So we need to keep this out of the way at the moment. We'll keep this guy out of the way and make sure that everything else that needs to be plugged in, these two go to the tank. This one goes to the tank. This one goes to our injectors up top. These two guys get clipped into here, or one of them does. Everything's in good shape there. Our cables are all nice. Not in a bind in any way, shape, or form. Nothing else is in a bind. These two guys go to our rectifier and regulator. These guys go to the injectors and sensors, and that is pretty much all of that. So let me get the torque spec for this throttle bodies. I'll torque those down, and then we can start putting the rest of it together. And now we're getting close to being ready to put on our intake. Not our intake, but our air box. And take a look over here and grab it. And we'll just take a clean paper towel and make sure everything's all wiped down nice and clean and pretty. No gaskets are hanging on anything. Just perfect. How nice that is. Okay. So let's set this on here. Make sure everything fits nicely. Now I plugged in a couple little pieces while the camera was charging, but for the most part, there it is. It's sitting there. This guy plugged onto here, which is completely relaxed. Okay, so now we can go on ahead and put the screws, or bolts, whatever we want to call them, with our copper washers. And these guys all get a little bit of blue Loctite. So we will start putting them in. So here's a long one. Hard to get your hand in there. But we'll get it. There's that one. Here's this one. So they're all started. We have a 7mm socket. We'll put a little wobble extension, and we will drive these guys down. Starting with okay, so back to our little torque wrench. We're going to go out to this corner. These are a little strange because some of them are screwing into the throttle bodies and some of them are screwing into the actual head. Okay, but we're all done. Just get our fingerprints out of here. I might take a little bit of acetone to this edge here. There's a little bit of gasket on there. So acetone. And let me just wipe these guys off. This, not really gasket, it's just kind of what they use on it. Okay, so that's all done. Now we can put our velocity stacks back on. And this one being number 4, and these guys get red Loctite. So first things first, let's get this in place. And number 2, or number 3, number 2, and number 1. Okay, velocity stacks are there, so now we need red Loctite, blue, get some red Loctite. And these are, I believe, 4mm. But we'll get some red Loctite on them. Again, these were all still clean. We've got no oils or anything else on them. Need to get some flow going here. Here it comes. And red Loctite. 2. And did I write it down? 53 inch-pounds. Yeah, see? I did. I was wrong about the torque on them. There's 70, 60, 53. So now we take our, we'll take a number 4 X driver, which so I happen to have right here. I think that's a 4. And here we go. 53 pounds. 53 inch-pounds. This back, we don't need it hanging around, we don't need to use it. All right, good. So now that that's all done, I think we are ready for the actual airbox. So we'll grab it, and all its screws are sitting right here, ready to go. And there's no Loctite on them. The gasket is still in place. It's all clean. Just a gentle wipe on everything. There's nothing on the inside of this. This thing is clean as a whistle. Again, that air filter is an absolute marvel. Okay, so now we carefully make sure that we plug this guy in, get him all lined up. Let's get everything out of the way. There's just lots of stuff here. So we gently make sure that things are out of the way, which they are not, but they will be in a second. Okay, wires in the way. Let's see what else is holding us up here. Oh, there it goes. Just when it drops into place like that, that way you know things are good. So now we're ready to put the cover back on, clutch cover. So let's clean up our gasket surface very carefully. And I'm just using a little acetone on a rag. Make sure that every little bit is as clean as possible. And we might have to do just a little bit of scraping here. There's just a little bit of that gasket left. And we got a little oil here, which we don't want on our gasket. Soak that up. And continue cleaning. And what we'll use here, see, you can see a little bit of the silicone, RTV, that we use. And so we're just going to use a plastic scraper, because that's all we ever use on these. One more lap with some acetone. That's looking pretty good. Got a couple more little spots. And continue on. Okay. So now, again with the acetone on the surface, the surface seems to be a little less prone. There's a little bit of paint, kind of an overspray when they sprayed the cover, but everything is nice and clean and beautiful. And what we'll do is, I believe, we'll just grab one of these. There's a bracket that goes in on the top here. This is the bottom one. This is the other bottom one. And we've got two of these, and this only fits in one way, I think. So it's like right here. If I remember right, that looks right. Okay, and that'll help hold our gasket in place. So here we go. Let's just get a couple bolts in this bad boy, so that we can get the rest of them in. We'll use this guy here, and that will help us align the gasket. There's really everybody sits in place. Okay, so now we'll torque these down to 106 inch-pounds. Torque wrench is all set up. So I applied some RTV at the grommet and where the cases come together, and they specify that this particular bolt right here needs a bit of Loctite. So there's some Loctite on that bolt. And now we need to torque these all down to 106 inch-pounds. And there is a specified order, so we will follow that order. And they say, so now we'll just take this and we will start, this being number 1. Right here. One and 2. Two, 3, 4, 16, and 17. And we're done. So that is all cleaned up and nice, torqued properly in the right sequence, and it is ready for some oil. In essence, I got a little scratching going on there. Good. So the next thing we'll do is we will put on the tank. Okay, so here it is. Okay, so the first thing we have to do is we're going to need to get our fuel line back on. So now we have our line, and it just gets pushed on, and then the clip goes in. Done. So that's it. Now there's a wire comes up here that stays there, and so what we need to do, get our tank in position, which it pretty much is. Okay, and we'll get the battery kind of out of the way here. Now it can slip on past. And there's a wire. I've got to make sure that it's out. Okay, so everything seems to be in position. We just need to get this to go down a little bit. Okay, and it's kind of hung on the battery. Let me lift up the front. I need to get this so it doesn't scratch anything. Okay, so now that's in place. We got a couple of bolts to put in the front. First, move the tank around a little bit, and we'll get those started. And we'll screw those down in a bit, like to get these two guys started. And with the washers on them. And we may have to move things around, but they're basically in place. And we'll just get these guys lined up. And going on in. And we know we're not doing anything bad. And you can just put them in one finger or just spin them in. And I think we're closing in on it. Maybe, maybe not. There it goes. There's one. And we'll get the other one. Just have to kind of push on it a little bit. I need to go to the other side. Get my hand in there. Actually, I need to... There's two hoses that need to get hooked up. These aren't any. There's no real pressure going on. They just vent to atmosphere at this point, like a non-California bike, which this really is. In Nevada, they sell you California bikes for whatever stupid reason. Okay, so now let's see if we can get this other bracket into place. Looks like it's better now. Yeah, it is. Okay, good. So now we will continue on tightening down the tank. Okay, and we'll get all these four guys tight. Okay, all those are tight. Now the next thing is there's a cable here somewhere that plugs in for our fuel pump and our just for our fuel pump. I wish this thing had a gas gauge. It does. It does have a gas gauge, but it's just basically reserve. Okay, the tank is in. Everything is cleaned up. Get our little gas spill done. We got some cleaning we're going to do before we do anything, but let's take a look at the air filter while we're here. I've already removed the tube for access to work on this other side. I just didn't show that. And there's a couple bolts that hold on this cover. There are 3 bolts that hold this cover on. There's 2 of the bolts on the actual intake. Okay, so we have seen the inside of our air intake. And look in here, look at the crud and the crust on this. Now there's one of the things, now this is that Sprint filter I was talking about. And this thing is, again, truly magnificent. If I can get it out of there. It is just full of bees and all sorts of stuff at the moment. Well, maybe. Let me get a hook on it. There we go. Okay, so now, take a look at that. Look how nasty and all the stuff that's in there. And look inside here. It is just gorgeous. Not a speck of dirt, nothing. And we're just gonna blow this out a little bit because that's all you do to these filters. You don't have to do any special cleaning or anything. Now there's a little bit of oil that ends up inside of this, and that's because the supercharger is pulling so much air that it creates a vacuum in the crankcase. And that's okay. Well, we got half the bee population out of this thing. I mean, this thing is just nasty, and it will be, and it just filters just fine. And this is all you do. This is all they tell you to do. Take a little air, flow through it. I guess it could. We got a lot of bugs in there. We'll get those out. And good enough. And the filter is serviced. I'm going to wipe out some of the oil and whatnot in here. And again, this is all just nothing but clean and beautiful. It's got a little oil on it. Okay, so that just about wraps it up for the supercharger gear, supercharger chain, the cam chiming chain, and the assembly and disassembly of the clutch, and all the other parts. The only thing really left to do here is to put on the outer fairings, and I'm going to do a little bit of cleaning before I do that. And that, you don't need to see that in a video. It's a little bit boring. So, again, thanks for watching this video. If you like what you see and you want to see more, hit the subscribe and like so we can do more of these and see if they're appreciated. We're going to be doing more different projects, not just working on H2. We have some restoration projects. We can restore screws, nuts, bolts. Yeah, we do all our own painting, a lot of times with just the spray can, and we get good results. So stay tuned. Thanks. good to go. Get this thing wiped off a little bit. I think while the covers are off, what I think I'll do is I'll spray this with a little. There's a really good product, and it's called Wet Shine. This stuff is fantastic. So let's just give this a bit of a shine. And when you wipe it off, everything looks brand new. Okay, let me get a clean rag here, which we just so happen to have. Oop. Okay, so now look how nice that wet shine works after you wipe it off. If you leave it dry, it becomes super shiny, but if you just rub it off like this, it really has a nice new look to it. Okay, the cover is on. We really have to do nothing more than fill it back up with oil, put on the fairings, obviously, and the tank and fairings, so we'll do the tank next. And then just wipe things off as we move along here. And we'll go from there.